All right, this time I'd like to invite Kalina, Alana, and Lewis to join me up here on the stage and just find a seat wherever you wish. All right. Hello. Hi, guys. Hi. So, youth are always teaching us new things, are always showing us new ways to see things, new ways to do things. Sometimes it's forging ahead into the future, making the future much brighter through their new ideas. Sometimes it's just introducing new trends, and when they're doing them, if the old people try it, they say, please, don't do that. But nevertheless, in the spirit of our youth, whose God-given talents and abilities inspire them to lead a meaningful and wonderful life that leaves an impact in our communities and inspires all of us to love like Jesus. We're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of a traditional sermon, we are doing a panel-style interview. So I've got Lewis, Alana, and Kalina, all graduating seniors. Have you all officially graduated yet? No.
Graduation.
So this Wednesday. Okay, so Wednesday. They're not quite there yet, but their foot's on the finish line. And so you just heard the scripture from 1 Timothy chapter 4, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to share little tidbits from that scripture, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what that means to our graduating seniors. And so in in verse 12, it says, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young. Instead, set an example for the believers through your speech, behavior, love, faith, and being pure." In the first century culture, youth deferred to the wisdom of age, which was revered. So oftentimes it was the elders that you would look to for wisdom, right? And yet, we know, of course, that God has given so many wonderful talents to our youth. As a former youth director and now a pastor that works with youth, I have countless stories of the different ways that youth have taught me so many different things. My previous church at Westlake Village, the United Methodist Church there, my first day as a youth director back in 2015, I think it was my first Sunday there, I walked in, I found my spot after the service. An older gentleman came up to me and said, "You must be one of the new youth at our church." I'm like, I'm actually the youth director. And I've got a similar story from Pastor Nicole, who used to be the pastor at Valencia United Methodist Church. When she got appointed to one of her churches, she started there, and there was a office administrator that was older than her, who immediately she could tell the office administrator did not like Pastor Nicole. And it became more clear. Eventually she approached her and said, "Is there something I did wrong?" And she said, "I have never worked for a pastor that was younger than me, so I'm actually, you know what, I'm afraid I can't do this anymore." And she put in her 2 weeks and was gone. She went down the road to another United Methodist church. That Methodist church eventually closed. And so now, without a church home, she, like a puppy with a tail between her legs, wandered back to the church, saw that the church was thriving under Pastor Nicole, that all these great ideas she had was bringing new life to this church. She eventually went up to Pastor Nicole and said, "Hey, I'm sorry. I see that I was wrong in my perspective, and I realize that you're a great thing for this church. I'm grateful." In the same way, we've got so much to learn from our youth. Our youth have so much to teach us, so much to offer us. And so I've got some questions for you guys, if that's okay. So the first question is, who has believed in you, inspired you to reach high, to set that bar high, maybe even been a role model for you? And what do you think it is that they recognized in you that helped you get there? So we'll just kind of pass the mic along, and whoever wants to share first.
So a lot of people in my life have definitely held me to a high standard, and I've looked up to them. One of the things that they recognized in me is that they knew that I could succeed, and they knew that I could do well and achieve high goals. And I think their belief in me, even when at times I probably didn't believe in myself, is really what pushed me to keep going. A role model I have is my older sister. She's a year older than me, but in specifically school, she's always been really good at all of her tests and her classes, and she's always had high grades. And so I always looked up to her in that, and I always pushed myself to do better because I knew that it was possible, and I knew that I could do it because she was an example for me.
Thank you, Alana. Anybody else? Sure.
A role model I have is definitely my mother. She's been hardworking since I was like a little kid, and she always pushed us to go to church and to strive for the best that we can do. And she's always believed in me even when I didn't even think I could do anything. So thank you to her.
A role model that I have would be my former teammate for cross country, Daniel. I would say that he really set the precedent for what I wanted to do, and both academically, physically, and running too. But I would say that he's just always been a role model to me and a good example on how I want to live.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I love how you all shared from different, sibling, parent, teammate. That's awesome. I love what you shared about how someone else believing in you inspired you to actually believe in yourself. And that's amazing. I think that's what we're here as a church for, right? To inspire each other, to maybe even point out gifts in one another that we didn't even see in ourselves. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that. Next question, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? And you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. These are all, you can answer it if you want to. I saw you, yeah, okay.
In 5 to 10 years, I will probably still be in school. I'm trying to go all the way through graduate school, probably get my master's, so I will still be in college. But I hope by then I'll be out in the field, out in the ocean, doing research and conservation and really making an impact on climate change efforts and making the world a better place.
In 5 to 10 years, I'm hoping to be a RN, hopefully an NP one day. So.
Nice. That's awesome. Thank you.
I'd say in 5 to 10 years, I'd still, well, depends on when, but I'd still be in school getting my master's degree. And I would also be working at an aerospace company, which one exactly I'm not too sure yet. But I would say I'd be working there, and also I'd still be pursuing other hobbies like running and playing piano still.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So moving on to the next little section of the scripture from verse 14, Paul tells Timothy, don't neglect the spiritual gifts in you. Practice these things, live by them, so that your progress will be visible to all. We all know the saying, talk is cheap. You got to walk the walk, talk the talk, right? And apparently that word example, in Greek it's typos. It comes from a word that refers to a stamp or a scar. It could also refer to a shape or a statue. Gradually, it came to mean resemblance or a model. So in other words, he's saying, hey, be like that. Be like a statue in the public square. Let everybody look to you, see how you're living your life, and let that be an inspiration to others to follow God and to see God working in their lives as well. And so Paul is trying to tell Timothy, don't be anybody that you're not. Be yourself. Be the person that God's called you to be. Use those spiritual gifts that he's given you. Practice those, and people will follow as you lead. So my question to you is, what does it mean to be authentic or genuine or to be yourself? What does that mean to you? And has your view changed or stayed mostly the same throughout middle school and high school? Has it changed or stayed the same? What does it mean to be genuine, authentic, to be yourself?
I would say being genuine to yourself is just really living by your morals and whatever you believe, and just your actions following whatever you believe in. Let's see, what else?
Has your view changed or not changed over the years?
I would say my views obviously changed, and in the future will probably change too. But that's just, I'd say, a part of maturing and growing as a person. And I'm probably going to be always growing, and my views are always going to be changing. But I would say living by how you see your morals now, and just having your actions always follow that.
Wow, yeah, thanks, Lewis. Yeah, amazing. Anybody else want to chip in? Yeah.
So I'd say to be genuine and authentic to yourself. Part of that is being unapologetically yourself. You know, have pride in who you are and do it with all of your heart. And don't let what others think about you or about stuff change how you want to hold yourself and present yourself. You know, just be true to who you think you need to be and what you need to do. And I think that's part of what my growth has also been since middle school and through high school. Middle school me was definitely way more self-conscious and always in my head about what do I look like doing this, what do I sound like saying this. And I think throughout high school, as I've become more confident in myself, I've really realized that as long as you're doing what you need to do and you're making yourself proud and the people around you proud, that's all that matters. And as Lewis said, I know we're all going to continue to grow, and I hope we continue to grow because that's how we all become better. So yeah.
Oh, powerful. Yeah, well, I mean, so well said, both of you. Amazing. And that's basically what Paul was telling Timothy. You know, Paul was telling Timothy, hey, God's called you to be a pastor. He's called you for this place. Don't be nervous or afraid that a lot of the people that you're serving are older than you. Be unapologetically you. Trust that God's made you to be who you are. Live into that. Don't be self-conscious. Don't be worried about how people are perceiving you, but live into who God's called you to be. That's well said. And also I can relate because when I was in middle school, I was, oh my gosh, so self-conscious. And over the years, I've been more comfortable in my skin, and part of it I attribute to my faith. All right, our last segment. So verse 16, focus on working on your own development and what you teach. If you do this, you will save yourself and those who hear you. So just before this, there's an analogy that Paul uses about working out. And he says, you got to work out your godliness. You got to train yourself in the godly life. He said, while physical training has some value, training in holy living is useful for everything. It is promised for this life now and the life to come. Now, you may or may not be the kind of person that goes to the gym, so that may or may not be a relatable analogy for you, but I think we can all understand, right, that this life of following God sometimes takes a little bit of work, right? You got to keep at it. So you got to train so that you are becoming that person that God's called you to unapologetically be. And so in verse 15, the verse before that, he says, devote yourself to those things that God has called you to. And a scholar says, literally, to be in them, to be completely immersed or absorbed in those things. And Timothy is to do these things so that all may see his progress. So back to what you saw in the children's time, being immersed, right? Being fully submerged, 2 feet in, right? Instead of just dipping your little toes into the pool, just jump right in and be the person that God's called you to be. So our final couple questions for you. First one is, how have you grown personally or spiritually in the last year? And do you feel any different than the freshman version of yourself? So how have you grown spiritually, personally in the last year or so? And do you feel different than the freshman version of yourself?
I feel that I've become closer to God since freshman year. And freshman year, like the COVID year, was really hard. And to go into high school like that, it was a big change. But I feel like I've matured, and that hardship had let us grow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I think over all of high school, but also this last year, I've really just become more certain in who I am and who I want to be. And kind of as I said before, I've become more confident. And I think also with that confidence, I've been able to really look within myself and figure out, what's important to me, which has definitely been helpful in, navigating this next step in my life. And spiritually, really, it's allowed me to look inside myself more and, connect to God and what I believe in and how I want to have that relationship.
Yeah, both amazing insights. I want to go back to what you said, Colleen, about the COVID. I came here July 20, middle of the pandemic, and we all know how difficult it was. And I think your generation probably is experiencing something totally unique, right? Having to go through high school during the pandemic, some of the most formative and most important years of your life. And it's made you stronger. It's given you a perspective that some of us don't have. And I think that's probably really something that you have a lot to share with us in terms of our own spiritual walk. So yeah, thank you so much for that. The final question, have you had any experiences that were really important, formative, meaningful for you, that have shaped who you are? And have you noticed any ways that God's been journeying along with you through that? So any experiences that stand out, that's kind of shaped who you are? Doesn't have to be anything too intense. It can be something small or simple, but anything that comes to mind. It's a tough question. Oh, okay.
This past Monday, I had my Eagle Border Review, so that was for scouting. It's your kind of test to get your Eagle Scout rank, and I passed that, so... During that conversation, I was talking with 3 adults in leadership in scouting, sorry. And I would just say that talk really just solidified what I believe in, and it really just taught me that I should still be willing to grow and still expand on what I believe in.
Wow, thank you, Lewis. And congratulations again, that's amazing. Either of you two want to share before we wrap? Okay, yeah, thanks, Alana.
I don't really think I can pinpoint one impactful moment. I think going from being an 8th grader to a sophomore, basically, going through COVID through freshman year, and then in sophomore year, navigating the loss of 2 of my grandparents, and then coming back junior year and really figuring out, what do I want to do with my life? And going into senior year as well, I think all moments I go through can be significant and are impactful in who I am and who I become. And I think all of that has just helped me become a better person and figure out kind of where I want to go in life.
I love that. Yeah, even those small little incremental moments make such a huge difference, right? And it's kind of a tough question. It's like asking you, what's your favorite movie? And you're like, oh man, there's so many, right? So I love that you reframed that question. That was awesome. Well, we've talked about finding your voice. We've talked about living with integrity. We've talked about learning and growing. I hope this has inspired you to think about ways that scripture is speaking to your heart right now. If you're listening online or here in person, may the inspiration from these incredible young people be sort of a catalyst for you today to be thinking about, what is God doing in my life right now? What's God calling me to right at this very moment? By the way, it's not easy getting up here, even for me. And to get up here, I gave them some sample questions. They didn't really know all the questions that were coming their way. So it takes a lot of courage to get up here and just share something impromptu from your heart. So let's give them a big round of applause.